I'm Tiffany K, and I'm very excited to be talking with Cait Woodward, who is the executive director of Loisann's Hope House. And Cait, I know this is a new position for you, so congratulations.
Yes, thank you so much. I am so excited. I've been with Hope House for 5 years now, but this is a new role for me. So
a new challenge.
Yes, a new challenge and a new opportunity.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
That's why I'm very excited to talk to you today about Loisann's Hope House, because I'm sort of still new to the area. I've been here about 2 years now, so I'm still learning the different things happening, right?
Yeah.
And these community programs are just so important to keep things going, especially when you're talking about homelessness.
Yeah.
And to be able to hear from somebody who is the new executive director, I have to say, it's really cool, okay? It's a big promotion.
I'm excited to be here. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to talk about the work that we're doing in the community.
Well, let's jump right in then. Okay. Can you tell me about the history of Loisann's House? And for those who don't know, what is it all about? What is this Hope House all about?
Yes, absolutely. Okay, so Loisann's Hope House started in 1987.
Wow.
We actually started because St. George's Episcopal Church had a meeting, and they noticed a gentleman experiencing homelessness in the foyer, and they invited him in for the meeting.
Oh, wow.
At the end of that meeting, they said, we're going to do something about homelessness in this community, and Hope House was born.
Wow.
But since then, we have expanded so tremendously. So we're located right in the heart of downtown Fredericksburg. We're off of Lafayette Boulevard. Mm-hmm. You have probably driven by us a zillion times and don't know that we are there. That is intentional. We try to remain the privacy and confidentiality of everyone that's staying in our shelter.
Of course.
But we've expanded. We started with one building that could house 4 families, and we now have 6 buildings on our campus.
Oh, wow.
And we can shelter up to 19 families that are experiencing homelessness.
Those are such big numbers, especially nowadays with the economy and inflation. And it's okay to ask for help, which is one thing I do want to get out there during our talk today.
Yes.
But to be able to ask for help and then actually receive it are 2 different things.
Exactly. Yeah. I have lots of information to share about how to access services in the region. But we've grown so much because there's a need. And so I think that that's something you don't always see, family homelessness. It's not necessarily always visible to the community. And I think that people don't realize that it exists in this area. But families are scared, right? They're scared and they're hesitant to reach out. They don't want to lose their children. So when we have folks that are coming into our shelter, we've had all sorts of situations, right? We've had people sleeping in storage containers.
Oh, my
In
gosh.
church basements. We've had where the parents might be sleeping in the car and the kids are staying with a relative. So families are in need of assistance in this area, and family homelessness does exist in this area. And that's why we're here, right? Because there's a need.
And that's important to get out there. It does exist in the area because it's kind of like those things you always hear with like bad news or something. Oh, it happened somewhere else. It would never happen here.
Right.
And then you come to realize, wow, there is more of a need. I mean, you and I have both seen, I'm sure, homelessness on the streets asking for money when you're at a stoplight.
Exactly,
You
right?
know?
Well, and we serve the planning district. So that's Fredericksburg City, and then it's the counties of Stafford, Spotsylvania, Caroline, and King George.
Okay.
But we also oversee what we call the homelessness helpline for the area. So what that is it's kind of like a one-stop shop for anyone in the region experiencing any kind of housing crisis, right? So that's I'm sleeping outside, or I'm getting kicked out of my housing option. I can't pay my electric bill. They can call one number to be screened, not just for Hope House, but for all of the programs that exist in the region. Wow. So it used to be you call every single provider, right? You'd be calling 16 places just to figure out who can help me. How do I access services? Well, when you're in the midst of crisis, that's pretty frustrating, right?
Yeah, and sometimes the right hand doesn't talk to the left hand either,
exactly,
right?
yeah. So that's why we have one centralized kind of intake center that we oversee for the area. But through that, I mean, currently, like at this moment while we're talking, there are 30 families that are seeking shelter in our region.
Goodness.
So it's like, I think people just don't see it, but we have seen, especially after COVID, such an increase in people that are asking for assistance, right? So that helpline, prior to COVID, we used to get like 9,000 calls a year, which is still a lot of people reaching out, right? But now we average 1,100 calls a month.
Wow.
Yes. So there's a lot going on. I think, with homelessness, during the pandemic, we were everyone, right, was terrified. It was like, what is this? Nobody had planned for a public health crisis. And then in our field, we have people that are outside. So that safety component was instrumental. And there were, a lot of additional programs and resources that were available during the pandemic, which was awesome to make sure that people were taken care of. But we were all kind of like just waiting for, okay, when these programs go away, what's going to happen?
Right.
And a live time, our community is experiencing that right now because so many people are reaching out for assistance. They're in unstable housing situations. Evictions have gone up in our region. For April, we had, I think in the planning district, over 350 evictions.
Wow.
Yeah. So I think, housing is so instrumental to children and to families. This is support network and
It's
to
a
make sure that
stability.
they're stable.
Yeah.
So think about, like, you have all the other components of life that just stress you out, right? And when you don't have a safe place to stay while you're navigating all of that, all of the other pieces become jumbled at that point. So housing is instrumental to families to make sure that they can be stable and they can have successful outcomes.
And there's something to be said of the American dream of having the roof over your head. That's the only thing you need, right?
Right.
Have that and have nutrition. You can make it from there.
Exactly.
And when that's taken away, it's like, where do you go from here?
Right. Like if I don't have a place to stay, already it's like finding a job becomes more difficult. Transportation, childcare are some of the biggest components for us that we see as barriers and people being fully stable. So when they're able to come into our programs, they're assigned a case manager that's going to work in partnership with them to help navigate and put all of those pieces together. But the first thing they need is a safe and stable place to stay.
Exactly. And of course, as we said again, it's okay to ask for help.
Yes.
I know that's kind of seen as taboo in society. It always has been. You know, you feel like you're failing if you ask for help.
Right.
And I struggle with that. I'm a perfectionist. I don't like asking for help.
Right.
But
it's scary to ask for
important to
help.
know that. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. Well, and let me just plug, if you are in need of assistance, please call the Homelessness Helpline. That number is 540-358-5801.
And I was speaking with the executive director of Loisann's Hope House. That's Cait Woodward. Congratulations again on that title.
Thank you so much.
I want to know, what is the vision and mission of the agency? Because we know it's helping homelessness, is putting that house over someone's head.
Right.
But how are you doing that?
Yeah, so our mission is to break the cycle of homelessness one family at a time, and our vision is no family homeless.
Okay.
So we've talked a little bit about our shelter program, but we have actually 7 programs that we administer to the region. And I don't think that people know nearly enough about what we're doing. So through our shelter, a lot of folks have the misconception that we are just women and children, but we serve families however they present. So we do have, single mothers with children, but we've seen an increase in single dads. We've had a lot of grandparent-headed households as of late. We get multi-generational homes where it's, grandparent and then their child and then the grandchild. Yeah. We had a family of 10 last year.
Oh, my gosh.
Right? So we take families however they present because what we aim to do is make sure that they stay together as a family unit. That is so important for their success. They're already in the midst of transition, and so we want to keep family units together. The other thing is our vision with no family homeless. We realize that to actually execute that, we need to prevent families from experiencing homelessness altogether.
Exactly.
Yeah, so we lead the homelessness prevention program for the region. That is targeting folks that might be in the formal eviction process. So they're going to court. They're at risk of losing their housing. We got lots of families that are doubled up in this area. So it could be they're staying with a parent or a relative. Tensions rise very quickly in those situations. They're being asked to leave.
Then I was going to say with that, there is, ever since COVID and beyond, students and everything went back home, right?
Right.
After they graduated, it's hard to find the jobs, or even like parents with kids are going back home. And I personally believe after a while, you can only live with your family so long.
Right.
So it's understandable.
Yeah. And you don't know what other stressors that people have in their life. So it might be, hey, you can come stay with me for a couple of weeks or something like that. But it's not something that they can sustain long term, especially if they're renting, right? They can't have occupants there that aren't on the lease. But we also, in this area, we get a lot of the motel population. Okay. So these are people that have been staying in motels for years, or they're paying week to week because they can't save up for a security deposit. There are motels that go $300 to $500 a week, right?
And how can you save up at that point?
Exactly. And the cost of housing, which I'm sure everyone listening can relate to, has gone up so significantly. So that prevention program really targets to make sure that we can try to stabilize them, identify a permanent housing option in the area, and assist them with the move-in expenses for that and that wraparound case management support so that they don't experience homelessness, right?
Wow. It's really cool to hear about Loisann's Hope House because it's not just a normal shelter, and not that there's anything wrong with any normal shelters. Of course, get help where you can.
Right.
But to hear the uniqueness behind you're not just the shelter, you're helping out with 7 different programs.
Right.
To prevent it so you don't have to get to that point.
Exactly.
And then if you are at that point,
We're
help
still
out from
here.
there. Exactly.
Yeah. Well, and shelter's scary. Yeah.
Yep.
It's like you're already in transition. And I think, I have grown up and lived in this area the majority of my life. I've worked in homeless services about 9 years. So I've had the opportunity to see other programs. But when I stepped onto Hope House, it was totally different. So all of our shelter homes are actual homes that have been converted into congregate living.
Oh, wow.
So when you walk in, you're walking into a residential home.
Not just one of those where there's a bunch of bunks together.
Right.
Yes.
And it can feel super sterile when you walk into other facilities. But for us, I think the environment, it immediately sets families at ease, right? When you're walking in, we set up each of the bedrooms with new bedding. We're always accepting bed and bags, by the way, and pillows. And then we put toiletries up. We already know like the ages and genders of the kids. So we get like toys that are dependent on that. So when people walk in, we want them to feel at ease and like they have access to the basic necessities so that they can do what they came there for, which is focus on their goals and stabilize.
And I think having that stable home, having the like homey feel, I guess you could say, does make you feel like you're going to make it somewhere.
Right.
When you go into, it's kind of like when you go into a sterile hospital and you're like, I don't want to be here.
Right.
Like, you don't want to do anything from that. You just want to get out.
I love that you say that because giving hope is kind of what we do best, right? And so it's like, that's like a really simple way that we can give people hope. Like, okay, I'm safe here. I feel comfortable here. Now I can focus on the things that I want to achieve. And I have somebody that's going to walk through it with me.
And it's one of those things, as we keep saying throughout this, and I will keep reiterating it, it's okay to ask for help.
Yes.
And when we help each other, things actually get accomplished.
Exactly.
Which is what I love. Now, let's go back a second, because you were just saying we'll take some bedding and stuff. So that was going to be my next question. How can the community help out with this?
Oh, you can help in lots of ways. So we are, constantly in need of bed in a bags and things like that. But I will tell you, whatever you use to clean your house, we have 6 of them.
Oh,
so
wow.
we are constantly using paper towels, toilet paper, cleaning supplies. All of those things we are always constantly in need of.
Okay.
And we are especially in need right now. The other thing, this is a little bit random, but we are in dire need of a lawnmower.
Really?
Yes.
Interesting.
We take care of our campus, right? And a lot of times our residents at the campus, they contribute to that process. So they're taking care of, trimming the bushes and the weeds, mowing the lawn. Our lawnmower is out of commission this season. So we have been scrambling. Yes. So anyone, if you have a used or new lawnmower, we will accept it. Any kind of, yard equipment or anything like that, please send it our way. But outside of that, obviously, any sort of financial contribution is huge to us. It allows us to operate these programs to make sure that children and families have a safe and stable place, that we can move them into their own place. Them getting their keys is so exciting for us. And it's the rewarding part of what we do. But you can go to loisannshopehouse.org/donate if you're interested in making a financial contribution.
I have to say, that's probably the most random ask I've had on the show from the community.
Well, it's funny. I had told the staff I was coming on today, and they literally said, please tell everyone we need a lawnmower. Cait, please. And I was like, I know. So it's the little things that I think people don't think of, but really look at your home and everything that you need to keep it fully functioning, because that's how it is for us. We work as a team, and we work, like I said, with our residents to take care of the place that they're in. And
as we've said before, these residents can't get to where they need to get without help.
Exactly.
And it's the same way you guys can't help them without help from the community.
Right.
It's a full circle.
Yes.
Yeah. Which is really cool to hear, because, I know the community will hear and they want to help in certain ways. But as you said, look around your home for the little things. We all think, okay, donate money, which of course can help.
Exactly.
But hey, maybe you have that extra paper towel, in your house, or you have the extra lawnmower or whatever.
Right. Maybe Costco has a sale. Buy one, 2, 1. You know what I mean?
All of those things.
Yeah. And we also do what we call, it's our Home Sweet Home initiative. So when our folks get approved for housing and they move in. We provide like dishes, cutlery,
Oh, wow.
trash cans, shower curtain, like all of those things that are just so helpful when you're moving into a place to get started. We have our Home Sweet Home initiative. You can go on our website and we have a list of items, but any of those kinds of things, small kitchen appliances, towels, they add up really quickly.
Yep.
When you move in.
I have moved multiple times now for different jobs.
I know.
It's and you're like, every time you're like, am I starting from the basics again?
I know. It's the stuff you don't think about. Like, I thought I was so prepared when I moved in last year to my place. And then I realized, like, oh, I need a trash can.
Yes.
Like, you know what? It's just the things that you don't even remember.
Yep.
That all of a sudden you're like, when did a trash can become so expensive?
Yep.
So anything that we can do to help get folks started so they don't have to worry about those things is really helpful for us.
I'm talking with Cait Woodward from the Loisann's Hope House. She's actually the executive director. And I want to hear what are some of the current trends you're seeing right now with homelessness in the area? Wow. I know we were talking earlier about how you don't see, we don't see it, so we don't recognize it. But I know there's trends happening, of course, with the economy.
Right.
And just what is the area dealing with right now?
Right. So kind of like we were talking about, we're seeing that people are reaching out now, probably more than ever, where our call volume for people seeking assistance is increased tremendously. Again, I know that everyone knows about the cost of living in this area, and it has gone up so much. I would say most folks, when they come into our programs, their income is probably ranging from like $1,000 to $1,400 a month.
Wow.
The average for a 2-bedroom in Fredericksburg City is $1,700.
Yeah.
And that's if you're lucky, right?
Yeah, that's if you're very lucky.
Yeah. So it is taking us longer and longer to identify housing options in the area to make sure that, you know, we're placing people where it's attainable. Our goal is we're not in the practice of Band-Aids. We want long-term success. So we want to make sure that you feel comfortable and confident. We're working on budgeting skills, financial literacy, and some of those things to make sure that people stabilize. But it's hard right now because housing is so expensive. And if everyone is, you know, experiencing it, our population gets hit really hard.
Yeah.
A lot of folks, they might have barriers in the application process. So we have a lot of people who might have low credit score, a former eviction on their record.
Yep.
And all of those things are very challenging when you're looking to get approved for housing. But a lot of the programs during COVID went away. So we had an eviction moratorium for a period of time.
Right.
The state had a rent relief program. We, as an agency, we received extra funds to assist during the public health crisis. And so we talked a little bit earlier, we have 30 families right now seeking shelter.
Correct.
So when we had the additional funds for COVID, we had reached what we call like a functional zero. Like when families reached out for assistance, we were able to help them.
Okay.
Isn't it crazy what you can do when you have the funds to support it?
Yes. The world goes around much better.
And so our community is really great. We have a really strong partnership with the other agencies in the area, and everybody just like swiftly fell into action to make sure that people were accessing services. But with a lot of those funds going away, we're seeing, you know, the trickle right now. And it's hard. So like I said, part of our goal is to prevent people from losing their housing because we know it has a cascading effect. Yeah. Once you get that eviction on your record, then you have that debt, but then it's also harder for you to find a new place to move into. The motels are outrageously expensive right now, and you can't save up money when you're in that situation. So
it's a spiral.
It is, So,
and I love what you said earlier that you're not looking for a Band-Aid, you're looking for a long-term solution. And I think that's also another thing that I'm from listening to you and doing my research with this. One of the things that makes you unique, you know, it's not just a shelter, it's not just a temporary. Okay, now you're out on your own. Good job. It's checking in. It's making sure you're still able to do what you're able to do because you don't want them to come back to that situation.
Exactly. You know? And we want to make it as brief as possible, right? Because homelessness, it is traumatic. It's traumatic for both adults and children. And so anything that we can do to stabilize that family as quickly as possible is instrumental to their success. We have, you know, we're fortunate. We have such an incredible team with awesome expertise and experience in different roles. And they really work so diligently with people. I think what makes us different is we cater services depending on the needs of that family. So it's never a one size fits all approach when it comes to working, with people, right? It's
and
not
nothing
black
in
and
life
white,
is,
it's fluid.
right?
Yeah, nothing fits sometimes. So we work with people just depending on their unique needs to address those situations. And those range all over the place, right? So
I just keep saying I love this organization because it is very unique and it's personal. Yeah. And as we said, one size doesn't fit all. It doesn't fit all for medicine. It doesn't fit all for clothes. It doesn't fit all for homelessness,
Exactly.
So going back, speaking of successes, are there a few success stories you want to share that's kind of, peeked out at you a little bit and like made your heart go a little softer inside?
Yes.
I'm sure all of them.
I was going to say, how much time do we have left?
Hey, keep on going,
So I'll talk about like our prevention program. Recently we had a single dad with 2 boys, and he entered into our care. He was actually referred through one of the school systems, and we work in partnership with them a lot.
Okay.
Just to make sure that the kids, have no disruption in their learning. But when he had reached out to us, he had actually lost his wife to suicide previously, which was very traumatic for him. And he was dealing with that emotionally, and so were the children.
Of course.
And he quickly lost his housing. And so I will tell you, when we met him, he was frustrated. He felt like he didn't know how to navigate resources. He couldn't find housing. None of this is fair, and it wasn't, right?
Yep.
But our prevention program worked with him. He was rotating between staying with family members. Because of COVID, the kids going to school, that became difficult because there was, a safety risk for the people he was staying with. So he was rotating between family members and hotels. And he had some barriers in the application process, but he worked with our prevention program. We were actually able to assist him with the move-in expenses. And we located housing that was actually in the county that his children were already going to school. So there was no change in schools or anything like that. But him being able to move in was such a success for him, right? Because he kind of came to us, and I'll tell you, he was doubting it. Like, well, if you guys can help me, you see how it is to try to find a place. Like, sure, I need the help, but I'm just not very confident.
Understandably.
Yeah. And we meet people often at like the lowest points of their life. And like I said, they're navigating so much outside of it that it's like anything that we can do to make, some of those components come together for that sense of stability is so important.
Right.
So he was a huge success, but then we also had, this was one of my first clients. I started at Hope House as a case manager in our prevention program. And my office was actually on a front porch that had been converted into an office at one of our homes.
Oh, wow.
So freezing cold, like a refrigerator in the winter, and then like sweltering hot in the summers, right?
So you packed extra clothes is what you're saying.
Oh, yeah. But I loved it, right? I just thought, this is so charming and fun, right? But I worked with a client, I'll call her Linda, and she was 69 years old when I met her. And she was staying in a hotel that had bed bugs and roaches, and she would rotate between that, and she stayed with a friend, but she actually couldn't get up the stairs to the guest bedroom and was sleeping on the couch. So when I met Linda, she was also very hesitant to engage in services. She had lost her husband, which resulted in a loss of housing. She didn't have any other family or children. And one of her biggest things was she wanted her independence and her autonomy. Okay. Rightfully so.
Yes.
And she was on fixed income. So that was a big challenge to find her own single occupancy kind of unit.
Yep.
And it needed to be one level. And so it's those things that I think people have no idea are so challenging to find in our rental market. But I worked with Linda for quite some time. We found her a single unit that was the lower unit, handicap accessible and everything. And we're able to assist her with the move-in expenses to get in there. But she worked with me for 2 years for case management because she wanted to make sure someone was checking in on her, keeping her, up to date with her budgeting and things like that. But part of like her case plan was, connecting her with Meals on Wheels. And then connecting her with a church congregation because she wanted and craved that sense of community and friendship. And I think in all my years working with homelessness, the thing that sticks out to me the most is that people need people. They need others and a support system to be successful. And it's great when we get to be a part of that process and be a sense of support for them during some of the most difficult points of their life.
And that's a perfect example right there of what Loisann's Hope House does beyond just finding shelter.
Right.
You know, you said it was a 2-year plan of getting a church, getting, you know, a job, getting a place to live, but beyond that, getting connected to this community.
Exactly.
And that's definitely, in my opinion, that's what makes you guys unique from what I've heard today. You know, and like all the success stories, I'm sure you have a ton of them. And there's going to be a ton more on the way.
Right. We've had this year 65 families that have graduated our programs and moved into permanent housing options.
That's amazing.
That is such a huge number. That is a big, big deal for us. And we want to just continue growing and increasing that number because families deserve a safe place to stay.
Yeah. And with that was going to be my next question. You're reading my mind today. So what is the vision or the future of Loisann's Hope House, and how can the community help you get there?
Yeah. I mean, obviously, I think we've seen that there's continues to be an increased need for prevention services. We also have what we call a diversion program. So that is our Keywall Hope Fund. That's Housing, Opportunity, Prevention, and Equity.
Okay.
So we've talked a little bit about, for people that might be sleeping outside or, you know, in a place that's not meant for human habitation. We've talked about those that are like right on the brink of homelessness. But what happens to everyone that kind of falls in between that?
Right.
And it used to be, good luck. You know what I mean?
Yes.
We can try to connect you with some other supportive services, but
we
don't
can't promise
qualify.
you can help.
Right.
Exactly.
So we developed that Hope Fund to be kind of like a flexible support system for everyone that falls, you know, in between the cracks.
Wow.
So I think something that I really value about Loisann's Hope House is we have adapted so much to meet the needs of the community. Because we administer that helpline, we see the service gaps firsthand, right? Because we're getting the calls from people who are seeking assistance, and we know where, you know, our services fall short in the region. So that Hope Fund and our prevention services, we are constantly looking to grow. And if you're interested in being a part of that process or donating to that fund, please go onto our website or please give us a call at 540-371-0831 to learn more information. But our vision is no family homeless. So, I mean, we're going to work ourselves out of a job, right? Like that's what every, you know, nonprofit hopes to do is we want to achieve that vision, and we want to make sure that families have access to safe and stable housing.
And that's the unique thing about working with nonprofits. Not very often, like, I don't think you'll ever hear me say, I hope I work myself out of a job in radio.
Exactly. Yeah.
But that is your goal, because once you've done that, you've reached that goal. There is no one who is homeless.
Could you imagine if every single person had access to an affordable place that they could stay in this area? The impact that would have, I mean, housing is directly linked to economic, health, social outcomes, right?
So true, so true. Well, let's get that word out. And thanks again, Cait Woodward, Executive Director of Loisann's Hope House, an amazing organization doing such good work. For more information, make sure to follow them at Loisann's Hope House on Facebook and Instagram. And whether you need help or you're interested in volunteer opportunities, just give them a call at 540-371-0831.